These guys are the reason why I paint miniatures, and in this video I'm going to show you the first miniature I ever painted and how my painting developed during the initial years. Welcome owners of fine luxury plastic toy soldiers. I wanted to make this video to show you that everyone started out somewhere and that every painter you see out there on Instagram, Facebook or in the galleries of Golden Demon winners all started from humble beginnings, and hopefully showing you my very humble beginnings is going to give everyone a new perspective and courage to try and learn new skills and slowly get better at this wonderful hobby. I started painting miniatures in the early 2000s, and the way I got into it was probably a bit atypical to how people usually get into it. I went to my local game store to buy trading cards. I have an addiction and it's called collecting everything. I collected stamps as a kid, cans of energy drinks, action figures, and among a million other things, trading cards. And I had a favorite game store to shop for them. So I was in that game store to get my fix and saw someone open booster boxes of Mage Knight, and he pulled one of these that were cast in translucent colored resin, and I got hooked instantly. Mage Knight was a collectible miniature game that had pre-painted miniatures, and some of the first edition sculpts were really ugly. But as they released their new editions, the miniatures got better and they tried to do innovative things like these see-through resin, and some of these were really fun designs. I'm probably going to paint this one up for sentimental reasons eventually. I bought so many of these, and eventually they tried to sell you more figures, so they released siege engines and figures for larger battles like trolls and giants. And of course I bought them. I really questioned some of my life choices. For a while I got really hooked on playing this game, which was really easy because the miniatures had all the stats printed on a disc, along with their special abilities being color coded on them, and if they took damage you just rotated the disc and it updated their stats accordingly until they were eliminated. Eventually I thought these paint shops could be a lot better, so I was going online into the mysterious depths of the internet. And I found guides on how to customize them, and eventually I painted my first miniature, and this is how it looked like. Like I said, everyone starts out somewhere. I'm kind of sure this is only metallics, washes and dry brushing, and the steel metallics must have ended up looking too shiny, that's why I toned them down with grays. But this was my gateway drug, and I was quickly looking for more dynamic ways to create depth on my miniatures, so I painted my second miniature with a lot of inks. That's why this dragon is so shiny. But I'd say that's already an improvement. Soon it was clear to me that I like painting better than playing, and I quickly discovered that there are more eye-appealing miniatures out there, so my third miniature was a Games Workshop Tyrannid, including the Goblin Green base trim. On my fourth miniature I discovered that layering is more effective than dry brushing. It took me until my fifth one though to ditch the Goblin Green on the base. Back in these days I really liked how washes over metallics looked, and I quickly moved into freehands. It was only checker patterns and lines, but it was a great way to practice and learn how paint behaves on a surface and how to put down paint in a more deliberate and controlled way. Before we continue with my mini journey, I just want to say that, as you know, if you have the bell next to my subscription button activated, some of my videos got claimed by music companies for content that they don't even own. Because apparently multi-billion-dollar companies need the extra $10 desperately. But Skillshare kindly stepped in and decided to sponsor this video, and I couldn't be more glad about a sponsorship, because for creative and curious people like you and me, Skillshare is a treasure trove of ideas. Skillshare offers thousands of creative classes on topics including illustration, design, photography, and I found so much useful content that was directly applicable to my mini journey. Like the art and science of drawing, or an introduction to the art of figure drawing, for example, that helped me learn about how to pose figures or how to draw better sketches for freehands. But most important to me, it also gives you access to the ideas and philosophies of professional creators. So not only do you get to know how they do it, but also why they do it. Where else would we be able to dive into the mind of people like Aaron Draplin, one of my favorite designers and creators, and someone who has directly influenced my way of creative and compositional thinking on how to use colors to our advantage. And all of the classes are designed and structured in chapters to fit a busy schedule. So if all of this sounds interesting, head over to Skillshare, and because they are sponsoring this video, I'm able to offer 2 months of membership completely for free to the first 1,000 people signing up through the link below in the description. And after that, it's super cheap to start your monthly premium membership. So don't hesitate, click that link below and dive into Skillshare and get lost in the creativity that awaits. 2 things I got hooked on very early on was converting and resculpting, and of course building small scenes around the miniatures. I was really proud of the Cthulhu face here, but of course everything is really still naive. The banner is way too thick, the stone is just cut up plaster and doesn't look very realistic. But this was the first ever scenic base I built for a miniature. In 2005 I entered the Golden Demon for the first time and I won a silver trophy. In the same year I won my first gold trophy as well in the Italian competition. Now, I'm not saying that to show off, but I mention it because being successful early on can set you on a path that is potentially unhealthy, because it creates expectations. And whether these expectations are intrinsic or external, they can create pressure that can turn into frustration easily. I couldn't find these minis anymore, but here is an entry from 1 year later that won a Gold Demon too. Obviously here I started moving into non-metallic metal already because I felt I have more control over the composition of a figure when I'm able to control where reflections go. At this point I was on a quest to push every aspect I could, and the next step up was a freehands. This Bretonnian was my first endeavor into freehands, and even though it won a silver demon back in 2007, it's of course very basic and you can see a lot of overshaded areas and so on. But I definitely enjoyed painting this model back then. I started experimenting with non-metallic metal style metallics back then too, as you can see on the sword for example. Eventually I took the jump and sculpted my first miniature. In the tradition of a true miniature aficionado, it had to be a naked barbarian dude. It's completely done in green stuff, which is not the best material for a beginner sculptor, and you can see that some parts are not as delicate as they should be. I also entered this into a Golden Demon. I don't know what I was thinking. So now you got to be really strong. Because I stopped painting Warhammer altogether for a few years when I fell in love with Confrontation. This was the first miniature I tried non-metallic metal on. It's not finished at all, but I got into the habit of having practice miniatures back then that I knew I would try a few things on and never finish. When Hybrid for Confrontation came out, I was finally sold on dirts. I just liked the aspect of clones and lab experiments running wild and beating their oppressors and forming their own tribe. It had a lot of potential for storytelling in miniatures, which is something I always liked. Plus it suited my style of painting with all the exposed muscles and bone and metal parts. These are all miniatures I was gaming with, so not all of them were painted to the standard I was able to do back then, but I always tried to make them nice and learn something with every new miniature I painted. Another faction I was into were Druids. Think about Celtic warriors in league with the devil and being able to summon demons and undead into their ranks. Obviously you can see the similarities to the dirts. Eventually the game fizzled out of existence and my interest in sculpting got re-sparked. This is my second ever sculpted miniature, done completely in Tamiya QuickType. Even though it's really tiny, I like how much detail I was able to put into this one. The one thing that really upped my game with miniature sculpting was moving into polymer clays. And it clearly shows in my third sculpt ever. This one is in 54mm scale. It's inspired by a Warhammer Online artwork. And I did this one for the large scale category at Golden Demon, a category that was abandoned the very year I finished this sculpt, so I never painted it. What followed was a few darker years for my painting. With the dilemma of having a track record of getting trophies at Golden Demons, and wanting to prove I can do it again, I was spiraling into a bad place with painting. Because when painting is only a means to earn trophies and it stops being fun, you wonder why you should keep doing it. And with being half decent at sculpting right off the bat and enjoying it, and companies hiring me to sculpt for them, painting was on the bench.